What is the word? A series of vibrations, of sound which bears meaning, energy, ripples felt through a medium. A word implies time, a process that begins with the first sound, carrying through to the last. Realization gathers in between, within the word itself. I would like you to imagine or consider that the entire universe is a sound wave, a spoken word that is both spoken and being spoken simultaneously. If the universe is a process, suspended and ongoing, a stable sine wave, a temporal Mobius strip that is both the word spoken and being spoken, sustained because all time is one, alive because by being spoken, time exists locally. The creation of the universe, then, would not be a big bang of exploding matter and energy into the void, but a multi-layered reverberation, unfurling through a medium, so shaping and transforming it that we can't see or imagine there is ever anything else. And you think of a medium and you think of it like sound, but really it's a conscious command, because all consciousness requires a listener and a speaker. We're only aware of our own consciousness because we have the ability to have a thought and also hear that thought. So the very thing that defines consciousness itself is the ability to both speak and listen on a particular level. So perhaps instead of being a wave that goes and compresses quarks into protons and neutrons, it's more a command that travels on a wave, that quarks as particulate motes of dust that respond and can respond to a command that is made via consciousness. They're sensitive perhaps to consciousness, and maybe the qualities that they have, the strange and the colour fit, the charms and the different up and down natures of quarks is not something that they inherently have, but part of the command that they're given by the initial unfolding of the word that made the universe into existence. And it's through affecting the quarks within the medium of dark matter and whatever was there that protons and neutrons became formed. In a way, there's a relationship between the formation of mass with protons and neutrons and time, in that the localize, because there's four forces, and the four forces that we have different ranges and different strengths. So the gravity has pretty much goes on forever. So that represents a kind of eternal force in terms of distance, but then the strong nuclear forces are very localized, and it's the localization of them that allows mass to exist, and it's the existence of mass and mass itself that we tell time by. The decaying of a cesium atom, carbon dating, we only really know to experience time through the material. So the strong nuclear forces that exist between the quarks forming protons and neutrons in the nucleus of atoms is part of what allows time to have a local experience, and gravity is part of what holds together the bubble of the universe that we're in terms of uniformity. and eternality, perhaps, because it never ends, it never stops. And we have light as well that we use to measure distance. We use in those ways as a constant. So they work together. The four forces work together to create, to allow the space to exist whereby time is experienced locally and we can have material existence, but also remains on some level also eternal, so that the universe has a form of stability. I know there's the Big Bang Theory, and we call conception the spark of life, but isn't it more of a sigh of relief as each short-lived half-gamete finds the other to become whole, to grow and take root in the world? Isn't the explosion more a precursor, a gathering of energy, a deep breath, a ringing out, a shout, an utterance? On this side of conception, we divide and unfold, a half, a quarter, an eighth, a 16th, or along the lines of Fibonacci, the golden ratio, curling ferns and breath, and bringing beauty to flowers and faces alike. And I wonder, with the idea that neutrinos only have a left-handed spin and antineutrinos only have a right-handed spin, that there has to be a form of direction for the rules that govern nature to unfold. And maybe it's only having a left-handed spin that allows the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence eventually to unfold, because it allows a direction on some level of sorts. Anyway, Mandelbrot fractures show that while the same process repeats to infinity, it can't be predicted. Philosophically, it's the difference in repetition of fractals, the perfection and irregularity that define the parameters of life, that possibly even allow for the collective and individual experience. And these parameters of difference and repetition, of perfection and irregularity, and in a way of collective experience and individual experience, it's between these parameters, kind of like T.S. Eliot, that creates space, that allows us that space to both be ourselves and create meaning. Because the knowledge that perfection exists gives us something to aim for, but the knowledge that irregularity and difference is also part of the pattern allows us to choose, and is at the heart of, as conscious beings, it's at the heart of our material existence as to how to live. Perhaps it's in the space of between difference and repetition, or perfection and irregularity, that we see in the unpredictability of fractals that human consciousness inhabits. Because our consciousness is self-reflective, that is, it both speaks and listens to itself speaking. It thinks and is aware of itself thinking. Our consciousness is what it is by being present and by listening. That is its uniquely identifying feature. we are defined by our presence and our inner witness. The presence we're aware of when we meditate or listen to music or look at art. It's a listening, experiential presence capable of existing without thought. And that the universe may be formed by a form of spoken word that is both listened to and produced, kind of echoes our experience of consciousness, which was formed by that universe. The question then becomes, am I simply describing my own mind or the universe? And are they one and the same? With this in mind, the self-reflective nature of our consciousness, that is, the ability of being a listening presence, but also the ability of having our own thought, is connected to our experience of time as both eternal and local. I think perhaps because the listening presence without thought has an eternality in terms of time. And once thought is then spoken in the real world as biological, physical beings, material beings, it's spoken in real time. So even the transference of our thoughts that we have through to communication in the real world is in a way a kind of move from eternal time into local time, simply by coming via consciousness through the material. It becomes localized in a form of time. And so it's this kind of dichotomy between the self-reflective nature of consciousness and the nature of the universe as a word that has been spoken and is being spoken in sense of time that is both eternal and unfolding at the same time, has a connection also with the connection between the difference and repetition that runs through the universe as different systems in their material existence have to interact with one another. So nothing unfolds perfectly in the material world, but it's more interesting, and that's the space that the material world is for in some sense. So there is a number, and it is 1/137, which physicists have defined as a universal constant, and it's a number that has no physical attributes, it has no units of measurement. It's the result of a resolution of various mathematical constants that describe matter and light. However, 1/137 is also the difference between the speed of light and the speed of an electron that orbits an atom. An approximate speed, because obviously there's no guarantee of anything. But so if you divide the speed of light by 137, you get the speed of an electron, which makes an electron 137th, the speed of an electron 137th of the speed of light. So because 1/137 has no physical attributes, but it defines a relationship between, or seems to define a relationship between the speed of an electron that orbits an atom and the speed of light, that is a different speed and wavelength. I presume those wavelengths different. That makes it a command, and in a way a wavelength shift for light that tells it how much to slow down in the presence of quarks that are bound together as protons and neutrons. So it seems so as to be captured as a field with just enough possibility to form a single particulate expression that is an electron. So you can think of it as a command to the speed of light in some form that shifts the wavelength and the speed to slow it down in the presence of neutrons and protons to the exact speed that allows the perfect amount of energy to be caught in the field of the material presence of the quarks, and therefore create an electron within that field that goes around the atom. Possibly, I am hypothesizing. 137 is also the 33rd prime number in our mathematics. In the Christian faith, 33 has significance as effectively representing Jesus. The Freemasons refer to the 33rd degree for this reason, and also refer to him as the Word made flesh. And I've never seen why the relationships in religions and mythology can't be recognized as forms of equations that come through, because they come through our unconscious, they come through our conscious, through our unconscious to our conscious, which are themselves defined by the parameters of a material existence and its mathematical relationships that makes us possible. So I don't see why there aren't relationships found in religions that are telling us other truths about how the universe is formed. But all the constants that we have and the scientific rules that we use, generally we can, whether it's an illusion or not, see them as expressions of material existence and linked to materiality. But the universal constant as of 1/137, as it has no physical attributes, as it has no units or material reality and simply is, in a way, doesn't that make it a command? Simply just a command, which perhaps makes it proof of the existence of a higher consciousness or God, as it's found in the relationship between matter and light, which by following this command allows electrons to form and atoms to form, and so life to exist, because all chemistry and all life starts with the exchange of electrons between atoms. From our first awareness, from the pulse of our mother's heartbeat, we swim in sound, rhythms, patterns, frequencies, voices. We are slapped from the womb until we make our first cry. Every cell in our body hums to its own hertz. Every living cell has its own frequency. Likewise, every living creature its own voice. When nature falls silent, it's usually out of fear. Alertness, it's listening instead. We reach for the divine through singing, praying, chanting. We have poetic verse and mantras. We bless with spoken words and understand or believe that there is some inherent meaning in music. We use language to convey describe, hold meaning, literary and mathematical, and music to experience it without words. Even those without hearing feel pulses, vibrations, rhythms. What is a frequency but a vibration at different speeds? We have no true scale. We are fractals within fractals of word-made flesh. The universe could be a marble in a pocket, like the one I have in mine. The universal constant of 1/137 has no scale or physical manifest, no units of measurement. And yet there is space between difference and repetition, for meaning, for our consciousness, one that is able to understand the infinitesimally small existence of itself, yet simultaneously able to imagine the entirety of the universe. Perhaps we can't step out of the loop, but only connect with a greater consciousness to be able to have a sense of what being eternal feels like, which is a lot, to be honest. And you can do that, and you can sense it just by lying outside and feeling the breeze.